When do I want Maggie to realize that the magic that she's worked is actually magic worked on her, or reveals magic worked on her, and not magic that is just being worked by other people in general? I have a chance to actually let this go longer, or to have her remember or realize that she's actually seeing the effects of magic worked specifically on her by other people, by someone else, before she meets Hunt. So she could actually know that something is coming, because suddenly she realizes, the penny drops for her, and she realizes that the magic isn't what she initially thought it would be. I do know that at some point she's going to do the scene where she actually physically picks up the glowing red pieces that are being left as a trail and throws them. So maybe that can actually happen previous to her meeting Hunt. She could even actually get a little paranoid, thinking that somebody is following her. I don't know how much I want to allude to the actual events of Girl's First Grimoire. I do want people to read it, of course, but it should be something where you don't have to read it to be able to experience heaven and hell in its entirety. So that comes down to what happens before Hunt meets with Maggie in the Mad Hatter, which is definitely going to be the next major incident in the book. I also need to figure out how to deal with Aaron. I think that I'm going to have him show up in Toronto later than Maggie, and that Maggie won't actually try to get in touch with him. I'm already a little bit ambivalent about the way that I've got her continuing to sort of try to get in touch with him. The best thing to do would probably be having a scene where she does go to meet him again, and he brings his girlfriend, and that's the moment when she realizes that anything that she thought might be happening between them is not, in fact, happening. I actually could combine the realization. Actually, you know what would be really fun? If Maggie actually realized that she'd made a mistake about interpreting what the magic red pieces are showing her, while she's actually in the middle of the meeting with Aaron, and maybe Aaron thinks she's just become very, very cold, because I do have that scene earlier where he talks about is it in this book or is it in the other book? Oh, I think it might actually be in the first book. No, I think it is in Heaven and Hell. So the idea that he's already accused her of being emotionally different, or going cold on people, and then here she is making this realization while he's there with his girlfriend, and suddenly she realizes that she's been entirely wrong about what this magic is revealing to her. And in a way, this is the thing that actually almost solves her problem with feeling emotionally attached to Aaron, because suddenly something is more important to her than that. How much do I really want to deal with Maggie's drinking problem, and how severe actually is it? I think I want it to be something that she deals with and has dealt with by the time we find her again in book 4. So that means that it should be a serious enough problem that it really does hamper her lifestyle, and that it makes her have to be extremely careful. The idea that she finds her way back into magic means that she's, in a way, substituting one addiction for another, which is realistic if she has this kind of addictive personality. I'm not entirely sure I've set that up very well. She almost has a more procrastinating personality at this point, but I do think that the idea that she's reasonably addictive, and the alcohol is almost a substitution for her love of magic, and that when she does start to find magic again, she can actually leave off the alcohol. What we should really see, though, is that it's not necessarily a less self-destructive behavior, at least not at first, not when she's still trying to figure out how to make it part of her life in a real way, instead of just something that she dabbles in. Scott, in a way, is very much the kind of man that Maggie is never going to be comfortable with, because he really demands that she is and everyone else around him are a certain type of person, and that if they aren't that type of person, he's going to treat them as if they are anyway. So she's a problem, and she's the kind of woman that he actually loathes. And even if he comes to have a grudging liking for her, she's still a person that he thinks would be so much better off if she would just tone it down or become something that she's not, because he doesn't think that what she is natural. Jason might have a certain amount of insecurity that she doesn't even know about, partly because of the abuse, but he puts a pretty good face on it. And this might be something where she starts to understand that the richness in his relationship with Suzanne is that she actually is willing to be there as a friend and as almost a motherly figure, and that she's also willing to let him take care of her in the ways that he needs, so that she actually gets something wonderful out of it while he's getting something wonderful out of it. And Maggie realizes very much that this is not only the kind of relationship that she's not capable of, it's the kind of relationship that she wouldn't want if she was capable of it. It just doesn't have the kind of support for moving forward and growing that she's looking for, and that will be the relationship that she ends up having with. The relationship with the goon is going to be an interesting thing altogether, because he's going to be a guy who's got some depth, but at the same time is very much caught up in this macho aspect of, however he came into this profession, this line of work, he's really damaged goods. Seriously damaged goods. And that's very, very exciting for a time, but there's not much future in it, especially because there's really nothing that they can do together that moves either of them forward. He's sort of stuck in the mindset and the persona that he's in, and she's still questing to find her place in the world. And as she tries to find her place in the world, she can't help but moving away from him. But the physical package is, of course, very, very, very attractive. And I have played with the idea, and I think it's a good one, that the goon was actually going to be the body that... that kind of magic is just a little bit too... It's too off the wall for me. I like the idea that you can do something that makes its own sense, instead of something that you just make true, even though actually making an interesting mechanics whereby something can come out of nothing is not usually thought about. You usually just have somebody being able to magic something up out of nothing, but there's no real concept that magic has any rules. So the rules of magic in my world are fairly strict, although they're, esoteric and at Maggie's stage extremely unknowable. But even Char, when he brought beings into this world to use their blood for rituals, he was bringing them out of some other place. He wasn't creating them out of nothing. And I don't think that any of the magic that Maggie has worked actually creates something out of nothing, so to speak. The flying is actually just, basically rearranging the laws of physics to allow her to be lighter than air, or to make air denser to hold her. I mean, there are ways to kind of justify the physics of that, but creating something out of nothing, I can't really justify the physics of that. And if I'm not going to have something that's logical, then I won't have restrictions that make the magic interesting.